Hey, Rebecca.
Hi.
I just realized I forgot to ask you how to pronounce your last name. So can you
Oh,
just say it?
yes, of course. You spelled it perfectly. So I was like, she's got this. Skolnick, Rebecca
Okay.
Skolnick. Yeah.
That's what I thought, but I don't know. I don't like to assume. And also, I think my Mercury and Sag just makes me like, I feel like I pronounce things really weird and it just comes out weird sometimes. So I
Well,
wanted to make sure.
you're in very good company. I don't know a single elementary school teacher that ever got it right on the first try. And
Okay.
even my maternal grandmother would send checks to Rebecca Schneck, and my mom would have to call her and be like, she can't cash this. It's like, that's not her name.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So yeah, I want to we'll have to get into the chart and all that and talk about your family because that sounds like fun.
Yes.
But yeah, so before we get into that, I want to introduce you. Um, I basically know you, I think through, and not even through Instagram. I think you reached out to me a while ago.
Well, so you might not remember this, but you did readings at a like flea market type thing in New York years ago,
Oh my God.
um, through a mutual friend of ours that does textiles. And she was
Oh,
having,
yeah, Barry.
yes.
Did
And
I
so
read you there?
no, I was the videographer. So I
Oh
have
my
like
God.
weird little footage of baby you reading
Oh my
charts,
God. Can I
like
have
15
it?
minutes. Yeah, yeah, I'll see if I still have
Please.
it.
Actually, though, because I'm like redoing my website right now, and I feel like that'd be fun to include
Yeah, I will
if
definitely
you
look
have
for
it.
it.
Oh my
I'm sure that I
God.
have it on a hard drive somewhere.
No,
Yeah.
that
So,
day was I remember the exact date. It was June 1st, 2018. And I know that because or no, sorry, June 2nd. Because I met my ex-boyfriend that same day, right after that.
that's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first video job that I had ever done that was like in the witchy or like spiritual space. And it was really cool to do. But then, yeah, it was you, and there were a couple other readers there. And then at some point, I did reach out to you on Instagram because I'm sure I tagged you in stuff.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Wow. That's so wild. That was so special. I remember reading the first person I read that day was her dad.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And it was really sweet. Oh my gosh. Thanks for reminding me of that. That's so awesome.
Yeah, hell
Actually,
yeah.
and that day sticks out to me because the day before I did my first ever like Venus ritual. There was like a grand trine between Venus, Jupiter, and Neptune. Venus was in Cancer, Jupiter in Scorpio, and Neptune in Pisces. And I like in when I was working in advertising, like I like rented out, not rented, but I booked out a conference room and like during this special time when Venus was on the midheaven and like did a little Venus thing, like prayed for like love and money basically. And the next day I
Yes.
like made money and then met my ex-boyfriend who kind of
Yeah, you
sucks, but
did.
I
Well,
did love him.
for the
Yeah.
time. Yeah, yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
and me, you met me. So long
Yeah. And I met
lasting love.
you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I am a big proponent of finding conference rooms to do witchy things in.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. It's
Which I have heard
necessary.
before is in my chart somewhere. Like I said that to someone
Okay.
and they were like, oh, that makes sense that you would do that you would do that.
I think I see it. I think I see it. So yeah, I didn't even said like what you do, who you are. How would you describe, like, what title would you give yourself? Because I just know you as like, yeah, like someone who does numerology and talks that
Yes.
has like great like meme, Sunday memes. So
Yes. Okay. So who am I? My therapist would love to know that question as well. The answer to that question as well. No, I am a multimedia artist is like the easiest way to say it. So I'm a writer. I am a tarot reader. I also read numerology charts for people and study numerology as the divine language of numbers. And I have written a book that's in copy edits now, will be published in the fall, on
congrats.
numerology. Thank
That's
you.
so
Oh,
exciting. Wow.
it's very awesome. I'm it's my first rodeo for sure. And I'm learning a lot, and it's been amazing so far, and very
Awesome.
hard also.
Yeah.
I say amazing
hard.
now that I'm like out of the writing process.
In your chart, I can tell that it was grueling, especially given the astro weather.
Okay, well, I definitely we will be talking about that, if only to save my own sanity.
Yeah.
But yes, it's on Numerology and Witchcraft, and it'll come out in the fall. I'm on hiatus right now, but I do host a podcast called Discourse of the Stranger. That's in the like alternative philosophy and religious space,
Cool.
which is kind of linked to my blasphemies on Sunday. As a spiritual practice. But yeah, I kind of do a little bit of everything. And I like it that way, but then it makes it hard to introduce myself to anyone in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. That's fine though. I mean, we love a multifaceted witch.
Yes. Well, I studied acting in school. That's what I went to college for. And I was coming up right when the business was really splitting into like everyone had to be a multi-hyphenate. Like you couldn't just be an actor anymore. You also had to be a writer, or you had to be a producer or make your own stuff. So I think it was always kind of part of like, I've always been interested in doing a lot of things, but then that's kind of how I came up in the business too, is needing to wear a lot of different hats. And so now I don't know how to wear one.
Yeah.
Just one anymore.
We connected. I remember it was with some of your old classmates, right? Like some people that you went to college with. Right?
When?
On didn't we connect over a project once that like didn't happen?
Oh, yes. So Divine Spark. Well, yeah, it didn't happen for the two of us, but that's
that's what I meant.
Yeah. Yes. So those were two guys that I went to college with, and that's the podcast. We make the podcast together.
Oh, awesome. So, okay, great.
I'm like, what do I do? Who do I know?
I just remember, that was really nice. Like connecting with you guys. We were talking over Zoom at some point in time.
It was very early in the pandemic because it was, so the company is called Divine Spark, and it's now multimedia, but it was a theatrical project at first. And then that totally went off the rails with COVID. We were supposed to do our first like cabaret type showcase to raise money on Easter Sunday in 2020, when we were all supposed to be going back to real life.
Yeah.
Remember that day?
Easter. It's all be done by Easter. Fuck.
Yes. So when it became clear that was not going to happen, we pivoted into more of the digital space. And so, yeah, we would have talked within the following months, like that summer.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. I'm so happy it's like a podcast now. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of like part of what draws me to you is this, what do you call them? The blasphemies. Oh my God. So good.
Yes.
That's such a good name for them. Cause I'm just like dying to hear your story when it comes to religion and, your history with that, because, your Sunday memes, blasphemies showcase is something I always look forward to.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, what is your, and I will say, okay, sorry, I'm like not doing things in the order I should, in the order I usually would. So what's your SMR? Tell the people your SMR. I'm going to kind of elaborate a little bit more on your chart, and especially why I want to talk religion. But yeah. And also you can tell us like where you're from maybe, or where you like, I don't know, anything Great. You want to tell us about yourself.
Let's do it. So you already know my name is Rebecca. Also sometimes Becca, sometimes B. On my podcast, I'm B, which is hilarious. It's now like, and my Instagram handle has always been at B Scolnick.
That's true.
And I think it was because I was like playing with a stage name before, you're like, I don't know if I want to use my real name. So, and that kind of just stuck. And now I've noticed that clients call me B, and more people in my real life call me B. And I'm like, I think I like it.
You like it? I like it.
Yeah, I kind of like it, but I'll answer to anything at this point. But I'm originally from outside of Sacramento, California. And I grew up there and was there until I transferred to NYU to go to school. And then I've been in New York ever since. So last year I hit a decade, which
Wow.
I think whoever they are, would refer to me as a real New Yorker at this point. And I feel like staying here throughout COVID, I've definitely earned that title.
Yeah, definitely.
Along with like gentrifier and colonizer and all of those other lovely, lovely titles.
Yeah, all the labels.
Yeah. We love them. So I've been here 10 years, and I don't know if it's where we will be forever. I live here with my wife and my dog, who will probably pop up at some point in here.
I hope so. Every time I see a Boston, I just like die a little bit inside in the best way.
That one that you posted the other day in
the boots with the fur.
Yes. I love
that page.
I watched it so many times.
Yeah. They're Olive and Gus on Instagram. I love them.
And my dog's name is Gus as well.
Oh my God.
We're gonna one day, if I ever get around to making him a social media star, we'll duke it out in the Boston space. My sun, moon, rising. I am a Cancer sun, Libra moon, and Sagittarius rising.
Awesome. I don't even know why I didn't even process that you're a Cancer sun until just now. I've been like staring at your chart. We looked at everything else. Cool. It's because it's that's eighth house issues. We can talk about it.
I know. And my sun and my Venus are in Cancer in the eighth house. And so even though religion can probably be more of my Sagittarius rising / Mercury and Leo in my ninth, I definitely think that having my sun and Venus in the eighth has added to that, like bringing things to light or trying to make light of things that would seem taboo.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean, let's get into it. Rebecca is a Sag rising. And you also have Saturn in Aquarius in the third house, it's retrograde. And then you have Mercury in Leo in the ninth house, separating from a conjunction. I'm going to share screen, separating from a conjunction with Chiron and applying to this opposition with, both an opposition with Saturn and a square to Mars. So you're kind of, and Pluto.
Just
so we have this very intense fixed T square between Mercury, Mars, Saturn, and Pluto in the cadent houses. But I'm looking specifically at this this third house, ninth house opposition between Mercury and Saturn. What's your story here? What's the story?
So I have to be honest and say that these are aspects of my chart that I've never had anyone look at before. So I'm just really excited to get into it. About religion specifically.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So when I was a young child, my mother was actually a singer employed at a church on the worship band. And so I started going to church with her and being like involved in like non-denominational Christian church, and started being involved like kind of in the church community with her. So she would just bring me along. And so we do have some religious people in our extended family, but I'm an only child. So it's just the three of us. And my dad is Jewish by blood, but not by faith. And my mom, again, was like raised in a church, but at this point it was her employer. And I really loved it. It was a great community to kind of grow up in. There were tons of other kids. I always have loved music. And so I got to sing in the kids choir. And then when I was 7, my mom got a new job at a Catholic church. And so I did go with her, but they would not let me eat the cracker or drink the grape juice. And so I was not as interested in the Catholic church I really liked all the theatrics. The costumes were great. I liked that you got to participate by saying things during the service. But overall, I did not care for it. And so I wanted to go back to a Christian church. And so at 7, I looked up churches in the yellow pages and I chose one. And my dad dropped me off and I started going to a church by myself.
Oh my
Like
God.
things, mid-90s things that will never happen again.
That's wild.
Yeah. So I sat in the front row and I took notes on the sermon. And obviously the pastor was very curious as to who this child was. But they kind of welcomed me into the fold. And so I went to that church until middle school, when all of my school friends were going to youth group at another church. And then so I moved over to that church. And I was a big member of that church through high school. And when I was a sophomore in high school, things kind of came full circle. All of a sudden I was singing in the worship band at the church. But I got a lead in the school musical. It was Oklahoma. And
wow. Is that the one that's like, Oklahoma? Okay. That's the only thing I know.
Yep. And so I got a lead in the musical, and the rehearsals were going to conflict with youth group. And so I told my pastor that I was going to have to take a break from singing in the worship band so that I could do the musical. And he told me that God was disappointed in me for choosing a secular lifestyle, I'm sure.
Wow.
And that was a big break for me. That was it. And I think
how old were you?
I was 15.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. And like 14, 15. And so it's interesting because that does go with the Saturn cycle. So I was 7 when I decided to go to a church by myself. And then I was 14, 15 when I decided to stay at that church so that I could go on the trips and be with my friends. But that conversation with my pastor was really the end of me seeking something from a church structure, because I did just know automatically that he was upset with me and that he was putting God onto that in a way that felt so wrong to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was the first time where I was like, I don't think this is for me. So like I said, I continued to go to that church until I graduated high school. And then I have not been a member of a church since, and have kind of since then gone through all of these phases of grief and clearing. And, I don't love the phrase religious trauma, although I don't fully claim it for myself, but it absolutely is a thing. And I think it takes so much longer for you to untangle from belief systems than it does to actually leave the structure of the church.
Yeah.
So, but it's interesting because it's always been something that I've really been passionate about and have loved, and I've found things at the church. And then now I find things in the stories that we tell, and kind of, I've moved on to comparative religions and philosophies, and finding all the common threads is what kind of gets me going. So that's now where my work kind of lands. And then the Blasphemians was just something funny that I was like, I'm going to take a flyer and just meme dump on one Sunday with all of these like religious memes that I'd stored in my phone. So I can't take credit. I haven't created them. I am just a humble curator.
It's a service. It's a nice service to provide.
So yeah, it's been months now, and I do it every Sunday, and it's pretty fun.
Awesome. Yeah, there's so much there. I mean, even just like your mom being a singer, it feels very like Libra moon in the 11th house, like your mom being this like, singer in the community.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's no denying that's two things really. One being your chart ruler being Jupiter and Virgo in the 10th house. But I think just, we're both ruled by Jupiter and Virgo. Our Jupiters are actually conjunct, almost to, it's like within a degree. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so yeah, it's like this, I think when Jupiter is in detriment, we get a questioning of, or at least some skepticism, I think, around belief, and like what it actually means. Not to say that we don't believe and don't have, spirituality and all that. But yeah, it's like, of course, do you hear that?
No.
Is it really loud? Okay, good.
No.
There's like someone cutting grass or hedges or something outside.
Perfect.
But yeah, so yeah, you just get this sort of, how would you say, questioning or just doing things differently, not kind of doing things the normal Jupiter way, which is just sort of, to have all this faith and belief and to maybe not question it and just have the faith,
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it. And just, again, just doing the Jupiter thing differently than the dominant culture. But also very much so, like I said, this opposition between your Mercury and Saturn, and specifically Saturn in the third house there, like, retrograde, but also in domicile and holding it down. It does have the square to Mars. I think that like adds a lot to it. But just thinking about the Saturn part and the fact that you've had these major sort of turning points when it comes to your beliefs and your religion, and specifically the way you practice, which I think is very much like a third house Saturn sort of thing. Like the third house to me is like both skills, but the things that we do cyclically, it's the house of, it's where the moon rejoices. And so having that is one thing, that's Saturn there. And I think the Mercury piece is like the Mercury in the ninth is so inquisitive and curious about religion and belief and spirituality and all the things. And I think the opposition there is like you trying to balance this true, like, interests and maybe passion for, again, spirituality and just like an understanding of all that, but with like also this need for like some sort of practice or structure around that too, which I think was what Saturn represents there. But also you mentioned your eighth house sun, your sun rules your ninth house, right? So this place of, or the planet that kind of governs and is responsible for your beliefs and your more like, I like to say it's like your macro vision and understanding of the world, is in the eighth house, this kind of dark place, this place that has a lot to do with, I like to say like decline, because it is, the sun is declining towards the horizon. And yeah, the more the things that kind of stay hidden, and I like to say the eighth house is like the sticky stuff, like kind of like swampy, sticky. Like I don't know if I want to go there because I'm not going to be able to like wash that off so easily. So yeah, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it does. It's interesting to think about the structure. Oh, well, first of all, the Jupiter in Virgo, I always say that I have to hold space for the fact that everything I believe in could be meaningless. Like this means everything, this means nothing. And to the point where I had sent a friend and colleague an early excerpt that I was going to pitch to my publishers from my book. And I had written something similar in that. And they wrote back and said, "Are you sure that you want to be saying you don't believe in anything that you're saying, like in the introduction to your book?" And I was like, yeah, I think I do.
I so relate to that. Like, again, as someone ruled by Jupiter and Virgo, I'm like always trying to like relay the fact that I'm like, look, I do this way. You don't have to do it this. Like, I don't know if there's no right or wrong here. I'm just doing it, and like,
yes,
believe what you want to believe. Like, yeah, it's this sort of like, don't like take me seriously, but also like like have your own beliefs. Like I'm not responsible for whatever you take from this.
Yes. Yeah. And so that definitely resonates with me in terms of, it's not skepticism, but it's just like, I don't
Right.
know that I don't
Yeah.
know. And so because I don't know, I have to hold space for the fact that everything I say could be a crock of shit, but maybe not. I'm well researched, but,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
could not be correct. So that really hits. And then it's interesting to think about like the structure of my spiritual practice, because I think if we're going further with the Saturn cycle, when I was like 21 or 22, like at that point in it, I don't think I had any structure to anything really.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm in my Saturn return. And so the structure is changing, but there's definitely been a call for me to at least portray some semblance of structure to my spiritual beliefs in like the work that I do in writing rituals, and with numerology too. There's a lot more practical application, and it's not math. I mean, it is math. It is math magic, but it's not as sciencey as people think that it is, which is cool to introduce people to that. But it's definitely brought on a whole new structure pattern to things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that, because there's like two parts of your chart to me that really speak to that, to numerology specifically. For sure, Saturn in the third. I think Saturn has a lot to do with just science and, again, like the structure of things. And with that, numbers, but I think Mercury too has a lot to do with numbers and just counting and data and that type of thing. And the fact, again, that you have them opposing each other in these spaces that have to do with religion and spirituality, it's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But also you have Pallas Athena on the ascendant, and I think that also lends a lot to this as well. When I see Pallas angular like this, or just prominent like this, it's like sometimes it's often people who work with a lot of data or coders specifically, because Pallas is a warrior goddess, but she's also within that known for being really strategic and really also she was like a skilled weaver, so she's really good with pattern recognition. And so with things like that, it's like you kind of, yeah, to me, like that just speaks to kind of potentially like a love for numbers or patterning in general, which is kind of what a lot of divinatory work is anyway. Yeah. Did you know anything about Pallas Athena? Have you related to that archetype?
So I had a reading actually not too long ago with an astrologer named Mallory Hasty. And she was the first person to ever bring up Pallas in my chart.
Cool.
And we didn't talk about it in terms of numbers because we were talking about my dad. And so
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Pallas.
And some like ideological differences there with my Sag rising and all of that. And so that's kind of the lens. But yes, then I listened to one of Chris Brennan's podcasts where he had Demetra George on talking about Pallas. And so I did a little deep dive, and actually because of that, she's in my book. I'm going to use that story in my book. So funny that we're talking about it again.
Oh, sweet. Cool. Yeah. I want, do you, speaking of, we don't have to get into dad stuff, but do you, I'm curious what your relationship might be like with your dad, because yeah, I would kind of imagine you might have been like a favorite or something of your dad.
Yes. Well, so I'm the only.
Okay. All right. You said
so I'm inherently the favorite, obviously.
Yeah.
But my dad was not really ever interested in having kids.
Okay.
And so then I came along, and and yes, we were very close when I was growing up. And it's not that we are not close now, but I think that we are incredibly similar in a lot of ways, but we just fall in very different camps. And so now in my adult life, we've done a lot of headbutting that we did not do at all when I was growing up. And it is interesting because I am the only, but my parents were quite, for my peer group, my parents were older when they had me. They were both in their 30s. And so I was absolutely raised as like a little adult. And really, I mean, obviously they dropped me off at church at 7. Like I was definitely, I was definitely given the freedom to make a lot of my own choices and be my own person. And both of my parents were I was incredibly lucky and privileged to be able to try different extracurriculars and, just whatever I was interested in to kind of see what I would like to do. So yes, to favorite, and also like just big proponents of my life. And
Cool.
yeah. So it's changed a bit, which has been hard for me, but I guess that's growing up.
Yeah, that's true. And also Saturn return, I feel like. But no, I mean, it's interesting you say that you guys are a lot alike, because the ruler of your first house and the ruler of your fourth house, which represent the dad, is the same planets. They're both Jupiter.
And my Jupiter is in Virgo and he's a Virgo sun.
He's a Virgo.
And I think he has other placements in Virgo too, but it's been a while and he's like very Virgo.
That's so funny. Yeah. Because also, again, Pallas Athena was Zeus's favorite child. She was sort of like a daddy's girl in the sense that she was the favorite and was smarter than everyone else. So he loved her. So yeah, that's why I was like, I would imagine you guys, got along pretty well, at least growing up.
We did.
Cool. Okay. That makes sense. So yeah, tell me a little bit more about how you got into numerology, and how you use it.
Yeah. So I actually say that it's a big cosmic joke that I am doing numerology very prominently now in my career, because I had to go to Sylvan Learning Center to pass math in high school. Like I am a total arts brain and just could not compute math and science growing up. And I do think that it had, especially that year, had a little bit to do with the teacher. Don't want to throw him under the bus, but he was nearing retirement and very unhappy to be still talking to teenagers. So, but during a very heated argument with my mom about tutoring, I yelled, "Unless it's Math the Musical, I will not be using this information." And so Math the Musical has not happened yet. The world is young, but I now look at numbers every day. So numerology was actually something that when I started moving away from Christianity and religion, and was definitely interested in other things. My mom is pretty new agey herself. And so I feel like that's not a phrase that we like to use anymore, but at the time that was what they would have said. So she was very into astrology and numerology. So, and just interested in things. So it started with reading horoscopes in the paper. And then I got my first tarot deck from a witch shop, the one witch shop in my hometown. And then my mom actually had my numerology chart done by a sidewalk mystic in like a beach town in Northern California.
Oh my gosh.
Who was just offering charts for $20 on the sidewalk. And I still have it. I still have the chart that he wrote for me. And I was just really interested. And at first, and this was when I was in my late teens. And so at first I was interested in it, but obviously unsure about it because of my history with math. But it was always kind of something that I found to be very practical in to use in my life, especially looking at yearly cycles. And so for me now, I will say that numerology is a bit of a twofold practice. So on the one hand, it is a study. So it's the study of the divine language of numbers, and putting it into language and giving, these numbers energies and characters and storylines have helped me to kind of jump over the hurdle of the whole math and science thing.
Mm-hmm.
But also my lineage is in Pythagorean numerology and Pythagoras. And so Pythagoras would have said this, as well as many of his contemporaries, that a lot of these early mathematicians and scientists weren't actually interested in numbers for scientific reasons. They thought that it was the language that which they called God used to write the world and the universe. So it was very much a spiritual practice. So that was interesting to me. Like, that was enough of a hook for me. And then the second part is then the creative or intuitive application of that information to people, places, and events. So just like astrology, everyone does have a numerology chart with numbers that are derived from the birthday. And then we can also go into names, and everything is numbers, can be turned into them. So there's a lot to do with it. But I don't think that I started using numerology in my work really only publicly, like in the last few years. And I will be totally transparent and say that it was a bit of a niche. Like, I saw a lot of tarot readers and a lot of astrologers in the space. And I was like, nobody's really talking about numerology. And it's something that I have knowledge of and have used. So I was like, I'm just going to start talking about it.
I love that. Yeah. There is like a group of people, but who are mostly on Twitter, but I think they use a very specific type or branch or lineage or something that does at least never resonated with me. Or at least the means that
there
they're
are
using
many.
it. Yeah. There's some weird stuff out there, but
Absolutely.
I think that's what kept me from getting into it. Cause I started to get into it at some point around the same time that like I was starting to get really into astrology. And I think I just missed, I missed the more educational, theoretical parts of it, like the Pythagoras, and knowing that it was a branch from him and his, work with numbers was like exciting for me too. That's kind of what pulled me in as well. But I kind of want to talk a little bit about like the chart and what each of the numbers mean, because I feel very connected to the fact that I'm a 22, like life path. That's like I've always felt very, very, just that knowing that has kind of pulled me through my life. I feel like I'm constantly trying to like be that 22, you know what I mean? And like, I don't know. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about that. So that is called the life path number, right?
Yeah. So like you have touched on, there are many schools of thought out there. There's Eastern and Western means of doing these calculations, and they are all a little bit different. So I always tell my students that if you're out on Google researching things after class and you find conflicting information, know that I have not lied to you. There are just many ways of doing things out there. So the life path number is kind of the core number of any chart. It's also known as the destiny path or the karmic path, depending on what language is being used. And it's really the center. So it's derived when we look at a numerology chart, we are trying to get to the root numbers, which are 1 through 9. That's your spiral or the number line. So yours is really interesting because there are a few numbers that we would use outside of your standard 1 through 9. And they are 11 and its multiples. And those are referred to as master numbers. So you are on a more elevated life path. Hey. Yes. So the life path is found by adding the digits of your birth until you get a single digit. So you would add them all up and then you'd have a double digit number, which is actually interesting. I'm curious to hear. I can do your calculations too, but what that number would be for you. but you add them up till you get a double digit. And then you would keep adding that number until you get a single digit. So like I'm on an 8 life path. So the life path, I think, mostly works on us more than we work on it. So I love that you're like, I'm always striving to be this 22, because that is really, we can keep it in our mind's eye and we can see that it is the long zoomed out perspective of our life, what we're here to do, the energy that we're going to come into contact with kind of in our evolution, also can point to themes or in our work or in our life, however you look at that concept we call purpose. And yeah, it's really interesting. So for a 22 life path, that is at least in my work, the archetype of the master builder. So it reduces to a 4. So it is a very practical energy, like a very grounded energy, but it is kind of this masterful energy of you can both dream it and do it. So you can spend all of this time ideating and creating and coming up with the concept, but then you can actually put the plan into action as well, or find people that can help you put those plans into action, which is something interesting. And I wonder how you feel about handing the reins over to people, because a lot of master builders do not care for that at all. They are kind of on the lower, like the low vibe end of the spectrum, like the worst micromanagey type boss who's like, here, do this project, but then is like looking over your shoulder the whole time. To make sure that it goes well. But on like the highest vibe, they would really trust that whoever they're bringing in to see their creations through are worthy of the cause, and that they're there to support and kind of grow the thing as well.
That's definitely my vibe. I mean, if anyone that works for me is listening to this, they can attest to that. I'm very anti micromanaging, because like I also don't have the time to be micromanaging anyone. So I just have to trust them. But yeah, that's so interesting. The master builder piece, once I learned that, I was like, hell yeah. Like I'm gonna fulfill that destiny for sure. And yeah, I'm really identify a lot with it. And that's like my favorite number is, 22 too.
It's a great number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in 8, I kind of think of 8, I get along, I feel like I attract a lot of 8s. As actually you tell me, because I feel like I'm gonna butcher.
Okay. And then I do want to say one more thing about 22 as well.
Yeah.
Do you want me to do that first before telling you about 8?
Let's do
so 22 being, knowing that it's 4, but having it made up of these 2 2s. So 2 is the number of love and relationships and connection and diplomacy and kindness and compassion, like how we are collaborating. And so having 22 be rooted in these 2 2s, there is absolutely a connective piece to that. So with you and whoever you're working with, and since it's master, this can be large communities now. So I see that a lot in your work in the 11th house, which I also love, a master number as well, 11. But they're in that, not only are you like a community builder and find it easy to connect with people, but there is like a big charismatic quality to the 22 that isn't always outward. Like you might not always know that it is, but like that you're doing it, or that you are a person with great charisma, but people are drawn. There's like an influential quality to it. So actually, what my favorite 22 is Kim Kardashian. It's a 22 life path.
I didn't know she was a 22. That's so interesting.
She is.
She also has Jupiter in Virgo in the 10th.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so interesting.
Venus. Yeah.
That's so interesting that I'm like drawn to her as a figure, only in the sense that she is one of those people who you're like, why is she famous again? And you're like, right. She built it, like, I don't know, but here it is.
That's so true. Wow. That's wild. Wow. And well, actually let's talk about 8, because then I want to talk about 11 in terms of I think it's called personal number or something. The one that's just your
Oh,
birthday.
yeah.
I
I
mean, the
call it the
day.
public persona number.
Okay.
So I can talk to you about, this is interesting too. So in my work, I cheekily refer to your top three, your SMR of numerology as your holy trinity.
Oh, I love
So
that.
there's your religious piece. So 8, yes. So 8 is the number of money and power and karma and all of these like big energetic concepts and constructs that we deal with. It's almost to 9. So it's on the end, it's at the end of the spiral. So at this point, it's gained a lot of energy and it's all about momentum and doing. Like if you think about the 8s in the tarot, they're all kind of energetically transformative cards. And so 8, if you flip it on its side, we get the infinity symbol. So the archetype name that I use for it is the powerhouse. I'm also playing around with the embodied because it is a very, if you look at body correlations to some of these numbers, it lives in it lives in the skin, which is the largest and most resilient organ. And it also lives in the sex drive, or the sex organs, which is like your drive and your chutzpah and very 8th house as well. But with this infinity symbol, I really see 8 as being the number of divine resourcing. So 8s themselves are incredibly capable and they can really do anything that they want or that they put their mind to. That being said, if they don't know how to do something, they would do well to remind themselves that they can always reach out to others for help, but they also have access to kind of this infinite resourcing, this infinite intelligence. And so because 8 is connected to the sex organs, to Venus, to drive and to want, right? We have this desire aspect. So a lot of times if I'm reading for an 8 life path, I'll say, be really clear about what it is that you want to be doing, because just because you can do something doesn't mean that it's a good use of your energy. I do see it kind of close to like generators and human design, where it's like, just because they can work a 14-hour day doesn't mean that we need to be working 14-hour days.
Right. What's your human design aura?
I'm a manifester.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I don't really know much. So
we're supposed to rest a lot. We're supposed to like go with our creative bursts.
Okay.
I don't know. It's really challenging all of my internalized capitalism to learn about being a manifester, especially on an 8 life path where I'm like, but I can do it. I can do it.
Yeah. I hear that. I similarly with being a projector, it's like, wait for the invitation. It's like, but I just want to create all the things.
And you're a master builder. So you're like, I'm not sitting here waiting for an invite. I'm going to make the plan and I'm going to put the plan into action. And then it will be magically.
But I am learning a lot. It's helping. It's helpful. And I'm just like, it's nice for some reason right now. Maybe it's the node's about to switch into my 3rd and my 9th, but I've just been branching out to, human design's kind of given me a lot lately in terms of personal growth and sort of the direction I want to start heading into, and kind of rediscovering numerology at this point. And yeah, it's cool to kind of branch out from just looking at my chart all the time, because that I can just do forever. I mean, I've looked at my chart probably enough for a lifetime at this point, but anyway, I wanted to ask about, you said you call it the public persona number. So this is like just the birthday and month added together. Yeah.
So if you're looking at the life path, that includes the birth year. And then this number that I call the public persona number, some people call it the personality number, or I'm sure there are other names for it out there, but it's just the month and the date. So you share this energy with not only the day itself, but then with anybody who has your same birthday, regardless of the year. And so I really see this number as being more of your public self or your avatar that shows up in space. So it's the energy that you bring to a room inherently. It's also the self that is a bit performative. So again, it's not that it's not you, it's absolutely a facet of you. But sometimes this energy wouldn't be like, if you're just at home with your closest friends, you wouldn't necessarily be running this energy with them. So it's really about who you are in public, and kind of the flavor that you're bringing to something. So are you an 11 public persona and a 22 life path?
Yeah.
That's
My birthday's 11/18/1991, and it just
oh my
happens
gosh
to work out that way.
Yeah. Whoa, that is so cool. Okay, 1991. Now I'm using my calculator. That's another thing. I do a lot of calculator work. Cool. So yeah, 11 is the idealist. 11 is really awesome. And 11 is the first of the master numbers. So at this point, we have now left the spiral. And so 11, what it's able to do is sit on top of the snow globe, so to speak, and kind of look down and catch the lay of the land. So see things from an elevated perspective. And because of this, they're able to offer us kind of the idealized or the romanticized, the perfect version of things. And so in a perfect world, which I think we need right now, like we need our 11s to be really answering the call at this point, because we need that perspective to show us where we could go, because they can then also help us to close the gap between where we are and where we want to be going. So it is this idealized view of things. So because of that, anyone working with the number 11 just needs to be aware that they will have to yield to reality at some point, because they like to live 1 foot here and 1 foot beyond. And so it can be hard to realize that you are still a human being having this physical experience and kind of subject to the rules and regulations of the here and now.
It's so funny, because like the way you describe just this, what this number is, a personality or persona number, sounds so much like the ascendant. And then it's like this 11 sounds so much like, I'm a Pisces rising. So it feels like it just, which is always so funny about learning different, modalities like this. Like whenever someone's talking to me about my human design, I'm like, that sounds so much like this placement in my chart. And it all resonates just in different ways and different languages, which I love.
I do too.
What's your, I guess, 7/7. So you're 5.
Yeah, 7/7. I am a 5. So 5 is the change maker. And we all experienced 5 last year in 2021. It was a global 5 year. And so I love the number 5. I know it intimately, and I let it take me for a ride whenever it wants to. Also, the year that my pastor said God was disappointed in me was a personal 5 year. Okay. So I can mark very clearly all of these things that have happened to me. But 5 is the messy middle. So 5 is the middle of the spiral. It's the turning point where you are leaving the beginning of the spiral, which is really all about personal growth and structure and foundations. We move up through being ourselves, meeting other people, learning how to talk about it and express, learning to put structure to that and foundations and planting roots. And then if 4 is where you build the boat, then 5 is where you put it on water and you see if it sinks or floats. So 5 is turbulent. It is a bit of chaos magic. And it really is like the adventure. So you learn to ride the wave, or the wave smacks you and you get back up. So it asks you to learn through physical experience, like really engaging with life, because that's where you can create change. So I love Octavia E. Butler's God is Change for 5 energy, because it is breakthrough. So if 5 is contraction and mess, it is also liberation and breakthrough. But in order to break through, you have to hit the wall. So
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So that's how I show up to a space. I'm like, hello.
It's so funny because like, do you feel like you have biases against numbers or for numbers?
Yes and no. I think in the last couple of years, because I've been working with all of them and I've been meeting people, and, before when it was just personal, like, yes, of course, I had my favorite numbers and I had the people in my life that were challenging to me, and whatever their numbers were, I'm like, oh,
Right.
that's probably a challenging energy. But now that I've been working with all of them and meeting all kinds of people, I really do see how they all weave together. So I think that some of my biases have softened. Actually, 4 is a number that I was
Okay.
not really about at all. Because if 4 is the square. So 4 is structure. It is systems, it's foundations, traditions, roots, all of those things. It's what we build upon and what we build. But it's also rigidity and stubbornness, and high vibe 4 says there is enough of everything for everyone. And if that doesn't ring true, it does not mean there's not enough. It means some are holding on to too much and others are going without. But then on the flip side of that, you have scarcity. So in 2020, a 4-year, I mean, you want to talk about a 4-year, we were,
oh my God,
all literally sent to our homes, right? To think about our actions and sent back to our boxes to live and really to look at the roots of and the foundations of not only our lives individually, but also collectively. So it was a fascinating year to kind of be talking about numbers during.
Definitely. Wow. Yeah. It's funny, like numerology wise, I have used it more for spaces more than anything. And I have this almost like, what's the word when you do things kind of automatically or impulsively? Like I just have this thing that I do, and I've been doing it for, I don't know how long, maybe for decades. Like I'm constantly adding the numbers up on addresses, like as I walk around or pass by. I'm always adding up numbers in my head, like constantly, and deducing them to, the root number. And I really try my best to only live in certain number places and, a certain number apartment numbers. Even like I'm in a 6, which is like really, really great for me. I think I love 6s. I love 6s, right? 6, I feel like
is a great number.
6 has a lot to do with love, right? And just like, how would you describe 6? We didn't really talk about 6, 7, and 9. So I'm curious if you want to.
Yeah. Well, in 6, we're in a 6 year. So 222.
6,
to make up 6. And so first, the easiest way to start working with numbers or start noticing them is to most people start noticing repeating numbers in places. So I have a little bit of a hot take on repeating numbers, is that that's where my Jupiter and Virgo goes. I don't know that they really mean anything. Like people are always asking me, what do repeating numbers mean? I think they're just attention grabbers. They want to get your attention. They want to start talking to you. They're the easiest way for you to start noticing number signs, or to start communicating kind of with whoever you communicate in that way. That being said, 222 is my personal kind of fist bump from the universe. Like if I see it, I know I'm in the right place at the right time.
Mine's 1221. I'm really into
funny.
1221. Yeah, which is also 6.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah. So, and that's a perfect example, I think, with numbers in general, but specifically with repeating numbers or any kind of patterns. They mean what they mean to you. I can't tell you what they mean. They are communication for you. So if you're noticing them, I can absolutely tell you the themes. We can deconstruct them. We can create, we can turn them into mantras if you work better with words than numbers. But really it's a personal journey with them. So 222 to make 6, we're in a global 6 year. If 5 is contraction, then 6 is expansion. So 6 is the next step after the messy middle. So yes, it's absolutely an evolution of love, because it's the nurturer, it's caretaking, it's growth, and the energy of blossoming and blooming. It's also a very slow energy. And I think we're
Mm.
already kind of feeling that in January, that January feels very liminal compared to November, December of last
Yeah.
year, especially December. Like December was kind of 5 energy on
Steroids.
full tilt. Yes. Like the 5-year did not go out without a fight, right? It was like,
Mm.
let's enter a new variant. Let's
Yeah.
make holidays chaotic. Like every person I know had a traumatic Christmas or whatever holiday they celebrate.
Yeah.
It really packed a
Let's take out
punch.
Betty White.
Truly, truly, we lost so many people, at which I don't blame them. I'm like, I would go at this point. If I were 100 years old, I'd be like, I've seen enough.
Yeah.
But yes, so I think we're experiencing now another kind of slowdown with the 6, because if 5 is the broken ankle, 6 is the recovery, right? Our respite, our recovery, and our growth. But if we can't do that at the speed that we were moving, the day that the cast comes off is not the day that you run the mile.
Right.
So
Right.
it is kind of this breath of air and hopefully some relief from that chaotic contractive energy. But at the same time, it's a very different vibe. And so I think people are having a hard time it feels like the car all of a sudden stalled out.
Yeah.
You're like, wait a second, I can't really plant anything here.
That makes sense. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah. I feel like the energy, the word that keeps coming to mind is like exhale for 6. It feels like being able to just like release a little bit. And I feel like just the fact that we have Jupiter in Pisces during a 6 year is make me feel good for sure. And it's also, if you're looking at tarot, it's the lover's card association. So there's that too.
Yeah. It's also the number of family and responsibility. So family is not just blood. It is chosen. It is, human family, whoever you refer to as your family. And so with that comes, how are we in healthy relationship with one another? And that's very the lovers as well. How are we taking care of ourselves? How are we 6th house? What are our daily habits? What are the wellness practices that we have? How do we keep ourselves well? And how are we then making sure that our relationships are also healthy and that we are taking care of others, but that we are not acting in ways where we think we're responsible for other people in ways that we're just not. So I think boundaries is also going to be a theme of the year. What are boundaries? What have we learned about boundaries that might not be true? How do we set new ones based on what we know now? I think collectively, the 4-year was like a sacred slowdown, almost to stop, truly like we've never experienced before. And then 5 energy got us all kind of riled up and we wanted to move and we needed freedom.
Right.
And we got it, but then 6 is asking us to slow down a little bit again, because we didn't actually make the changes, right? We just got all riled up, but I don't know that we've actually changed anything.
Right.
That came to light when we paused in the 4-year.
So what comes with 7? 7 is one of those numbers I have a lot of bias. Like 5 and 7 are my top 2. Like I have biases against.
That's so funny. Okay, well, 5 totally makes sense to me. They both do, actually. So
I'm a 4 and I'm like, no, structure, please.
Right. You're like, I've built this to a T and I don't need you to come in and bulldoze it. Thank you. Yeah, 5 is definitely bulldozer energy. Something about the public persona as well. Sometimes it's not only how you show up in space, but it can also speak to kind of how you interact with the world. So like I'm a 5 public persona and I've moved a million times in New York. Like I've never stayed in a place longer than 2 years, and that's generous. So that's one way where my change maker, I'm always looking to make moves. That's also in my career path, right? I've never done one job for very long. So not because I can't, because I just genuinely don't want to. So I do have a tender heart for 5, but it's true chaos magic. So that's not everyone's vibe. So 7 also, my 5 is made up from 7, 7. So now you're talking to two numbers I love dearly. 7 is the seeker. So 7 is questioning energy. It's really about.
That's why I hate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to know.
Yeah. It is about the search. And if you want to know, then you would not like 7, because I actually think, so I don't even say that 7 is the number of questions and answers. I say that it's the number of questions and analysis, or questions and understanding, because I don't think 7 is actually that bothered with the answer. Their energy lies, or 7 energy lies in the quest, right? In the search for it. So seek and ye shall find. 7s would actually do well to spend more time in the finding, like in the found part of the equation, because they might feel the urge to just, oh, got it. Okay, great. What's next? Like, what's the next question? But it can be very intense and dogged energy. But 7 is also the number of spirituality and secrets. It is a very spiritual number. It shows up across all religions and faiths and philosophies. Yeah,
definitely.
So it's definitely a spiritual zeitgeist kind of number. But yeah, it's all about deep questions and to understand. That really is the purpose of 7, is to understand with integrity.
That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I mean, just to clarify, I don't actually, I don't have biases against people with these, numbers. It's just the numbers. It's like, I will never live in a 5 ever again, in a 5 apartment. But that's for me, because I'm so even number. I even grew up in a 3. 3s are actually really compatible for me. As I say that, it's 333. It's 333 right now.
Yes.
But I grew up at 246. So it was like a 12-3. And yeah, I don't know. That's like the only odd number I can fuck with, really. And ones I can do okay with. But let's talk a little bit about 9s, because 9 is such a special number. And in that, when you add it together to any other number, it's that number.
It disappears. I know.
Yeah.
It's a cool math trick. Yeah. So now actually, well, I don't do this if I'm trying to find combinations of numbers, but if I'm trying to do quick math, I just cross the 9s out. Don't even look at them, because
cool.
They won't matter anyway. I know, it's really wild. 9 is a great number. So 9 is the end. It's, the end of the spiral. I actually think that 9 and 1 are the closest numbers energetically. You would not think that, but if you think of it as a spiral, then you know that 9 just goes straight into 1. And experientially, we know that things don't just end and begin. There is kind of this transitory period of things, or it takes time for things to move out and move in. So, but 9 is the wrap up, so it's completion, whether that is successful completion, like you finally finished that project that you've been working on for so long, or you finally found the house that you have, that you've been building for years. And now finally 9 energy would say it's done. And now you get to pat yourself on the back and celebrate it and live in it. But it's also endings and clearing and letting things go. So 9 is also big breakup energy. It's big layoff energy, losing the job, or going through a breakup that you didn't see coming, or even further, a death that you didn't see happening, like a surprise death, or going through grief. So that's really 9's work, is to learn how to meet endings gracefully, to learn how to constantly be clearing, whether that's energy or your plate, or whatever. How can you do that with more ease and more understanding and more compassion? Because 9 archetypically is the humanitarian. So it's also this big collective energy. If we're all the way, if 1 is the individual and the collective, 1 is this cool paradox of being one and all. But then you have 9, which it really is the all. So how do we turn our experience into wisdom that can then be shared kind of with with humanity or with the collective in terms of striving towards evolution or betterment. I mean, it's the last before you get into idealism. So
right.
yeah, it's this big picture number.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And it makes me wonder, is there a number for like just the day that you were born? Is that anything special?
Yeah. So in Chaldean numerology, which is Babylonian, the new name, the modern name for Babylonian numerology, what I would refer to as like your public persona, and now I'm doubting this, so I might not be right, but they really look at that number. And so a lot of schools of thought of numerology do look at just that number as to kind of point to your overall energy. So then your life path more becomes like, what is the arc of your journey here? But that number is like, what is the gift that you brought with you into the world, or the energy that's kind of at your core? So for me, that would be 7. So
yeah. No, yeah.
For you, that would be 9, right?
Yeah. So because it does resonate a lot. The 9 energy always has, and that's another odd number that I'm sympathetic towards.
Well, it makes sense for you because 9 is big humanitarian energy, but big teacher energy as well. So if you think about 9, like the hermit, how they go away and they do their study and they live their life and they have their experiences. There is this push-pull in the 9 where you have to go into your own space to reflect and integrate your life experiences and kind of do that alchemical work so that you can turn your life experience into nuggets of wisdom. And then you go out into the world and you offer those nuggets to anyone who will listen in a way that is of service. So it's a really big number. 9 is a big number of being of service to people as well, because you're saying, I've experienced this and this is what I learned. So hopefully you don't have to do that. Like you don't have to make the same mistakes, or this is what I know. And so hopefully that can help you along your path as well.
That's awesome. I love how this turned into us reading each other. Do you mind if we like talk a little bit about 1, 2, and 3? I just kind of want to give them some love.
Yes, of course. And then we can go through all, and I can say them all in a row. And
cool.
So 1 is the number of the self and the start. It really is kind of the spark. And so that being said, it is something that can be nurtured in all the way to 9, into something more, or it can just flame out. and there it was, and it was really quick and it was beautiful, but brief. But 1 is really cool because it is the individual, but also the all. We have this big unity factor in 1. So that's why I think it's also similar energetically to 9. But it really is the start. So the seed, you plant seeds. If I were looking at yearly cycles, some people have 1 years that are like, wowie kazowie, I had a baby, or I started grad school, or that's the year I moved, or that's the year I came out. And then other people have seeds planted. So they're like, oh, that's when I had the idea for that, but I didn't really see growth for a few more years. So 1 can be very loud and it can also be very quiet, just depending on kind of its expression.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But then the 2, so if 1 is the self, then 2 is the other. So 2 is love in relationships. It hangs out in this feeling space, this like wordless emotional space in the heart, where we are connecting with others and we're learning how to be with one another. But it's really like that first kind of attraction. And then how can we grow this into something else? But it's collaboration, it's diplomacy and kindness. So really runs the gamut of like, how are we interacting with each other? And it's also connecting the dots. So how are we connecting anything, whether that's schools of thought or ourselves? And then in 3, we get into creation energy. So 3 is language and expression and throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. It's like big creative fire energy, like the Empress and in tarot. If you haven't noticed already, I really like tarot archetypes for these numbers too. But yeah, so 3 is also the magical number. So in writing, which was absolutely ruled by 3 as the number of language and expression, in writing, there's the rule of 3s, which says that things are inherently more satisfying in groups of 3s. So that's how you get your trinities or your
Threesomes.
Harry, Ron, or your threesomes. And the triangle being, Pythagoras's like magic shape and all of this stuff. So 3 is actually, if you turn it on its side, you can see the whole journey. So 3 is the smallest number that encapsulates the whole thing. So beginning to middle to end. So you can see it kind of in the shape of that number as well. So 12, 3, which I know is a thing that you mentioned 12-3 not too long ago. So 12 is a 3, but 12 is also a number of the whole. So we have 12 signs of the zodiac, 12 steps of the hero's journey, 12 months of the year. So 3 and 12 are kind of these cool numbers that encompass the whole of something that are still very small.
Love that. Wow. Yeah, I love how there's just so many like parallels between different modalities too. Thanks for going through those. I have one question about the number 0 and how it's regarded in numerology.
Yeah. So 0 is interesting because it doesn't inherently have a value. So if we're doing any kind of math, it would just disappear.
Right.
But I think 0 is cool because it's void energy. It's like that void space. So if you're working with 0, you have all of this possibility, right? That kind of lives in this nothingness space. But then if you're looking at a number like 10, which is 1 but also 10. I think so Pythagoras thought 10 was the perfect number. He taught classes in sizes of 10 people. He thought that 10 was perfection because not only was it a fresh start, like a new cycle, but that 0 actually encompasses all of the experiences and all of the learnings that came before in the cycle before. So yes, in many ways, you're back in the beginner seat, but that 0 is kind of like the knapsack that you're carrying everything that you've already learned and experienced with you.
Yeah, because it is that like in between space between 1 and 9 or 9 and 1. Love that. Oh, I'm so glad I asked that question.
Yeah.
We should wrap up soonish because we've been talking forever and I want to give you your time, but I do want to
gosh, no, it's been a joy.
I want to quickly talk about personal years because you mentioned that a little bit. And, we did talk about how like 2022 is a 6 year and that comes from adding the numbers up in the year together. But what about personal years? How do you do that?
Yeah. So personal years, I think, are the easiest way to start working with numerology right now in a way that will actually hopefully blow your mind. So when we are working with personal yearly numbers, which that is the third in my holy trinity. So the first numbers that I'm looking at in anyone's chart are their life path, their public persona, and their yearly cycle. So if life path is all the way zoomed out, then yearly cycle is all the way zoomed in. So we can see we can help use it as a tool to actually orient ourselves in our own time and space. So you add the month and the day of your birthday to the current year, and you can do that for any year that you've been alive. And if you start doing that, then you'll see that they run in cycles of 9. So you'll get to year 9, and then the next one, the cycle starts over again at 1. So then you can pull out these 9-year chapters of your life and start to see like what story was playing out over the course of those 9 years, or what was beginning and ending and kind of where you were. So that's what you do to find your personal cycle. So you would add your birthday to 2022, which is a lot of ones, a lot of ones and a lot of twos. Okay. So you said 11, 18, right? Okay. It is 8. Yes. So you're in an 8 year. Yeah. So you're almost to the end of a 9-year cycle. So you can look back to Let me see one.
And I always had one question about this. Would you count it as the calendar year or from one birthday to the next?
Okay. So this is kind of where I have a bone to pick with numerology. So first of all, 2015 is when this current cycle started for you. So you can look back to 2015 and see either what started or what seeds were planted to kind of gain some additional perspective on this cycle. But okay, so because we're working with numbers and because we have culturally agreed on the Gregorian calendar, we are subject to that construct when we're calculating yearly cycles. That being said, I absolutely, just in my own experience of having this awareness and tracking these cycles for over a full cycle now, I definitely feel it birthday, like more birthday to birthday, or things like the energy kind of accelerates when you're around your birthday. The reason that I don't love that and where it gets kind of tricky is like, for you, then what does that mean? Are you always a year behind or a year ahead? You know, because your birthday is closer to the end of the calendar year.
Yeah, that's what I always wondered.
I know. So if I were to say to you like, oh, you're in an 8 year, but it won't really kick in until November, then you're like, so I'm just hanging out in 7 energy some more. Which, did you have a tough 2021? Did you feel like, because seven can be a hard energy to spend a year in, because by like September, you're like, I just got to know something. I have to get out of this. Like, I can't ask any more questions.
It feels like last year was a 7 year, like the whole time. I will just say I didn't feel like a 6 year.
No,
2020 definitely felt more like a 6 year for me.
Yeah, it's intense. It's dogged. It can be, and it can come with like, if it's the number of spirituality, sorry, my heat. I'm like my old New York heater.
I know, I'm like, that's taking me back.
Yeah. So if 7 is spirituality, you could have like big spiritual insights or become interested in all of these different modalities, or really attracted to a new facet of your spirituality. But on the flip side, it could also be spiritual doubt or crisis, or
that was definitely more like it in 2021.
Yeah.
Very much that.
Okay. So 8, you're moving into 8. So 8 as a personal year is a year of doing. So if 7 kept you in the question, then 8 is just ready to do it. So 8 is absolutely a year of action, of momentum, of doing things, of really being honest about your own energetic output and saying like, this is what I can do. This is what I want to do. This is what I do not want to do. Really staying centered in what you know about yourself now, which I'm sure if you look back on 2021, it wasn't all terrible. I bet you know a lot about yourself now that you didn't know before. So putting that into action and saying, okay, based on what I know now, I'm going to be doing things this way, or hopefully that are more in alignment with yourself and the way that you run energy and the way that you feel good, because there is that aspect of things too. But that being said, if there is confidence and chutzpah in action, then there's also doubt and insecurity and, dare I say, imposter syndrome. And so 8 energy just has to move through that by doing. Yeah. So it's kind of the Nike year. It's like, even if the voice inside of your head is saying, how dare you think you can do this? You're like, I hear you, but I'm going to do it anyway.
That hits. Wow. Cool. Thank you so much for that. I want to kind of pivot a little bit and look at your chart around what's coming up for you in 2022. What number is it for you?
I'm in a 2 year. So this is perfect. This is a great way to talk about our feelings in a room, just the two of us.
Love it.
Connecting. So yeah, I'm in a 2 year. So 2021 was a fresh start for me.
Wow. And you did get married.
I got married in 2020 in a 9 year, but that was interesting because it was like, that was our last year, a married couple or as single people. And then, we entered into 2021. And I do say we, and I mean we, because I don't know if you know this, but my wife and I have the same birthday.
Oh my God. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So we're both 7/7, but we have an age difference. So we're not the same year. But because we have the same birthday, we have the same persona number, which means we have the same yearly cycle as well.
Wow.
So
do you have any other similar placements?
Similar place in our chart? Not really. It's kind of crazy.
It's just like the sun.
Our charts are pretty different. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Just the sun. Yeah. We both have, no, we don't even have that. I was going to say we both have air moons, but we don't.
Wow.
Yeah. We're pretty different. It's wild. And so because of that, and I think that, that's cool to look at it also with us having the same, like we have the same yearly cycle, but it presents in totally different ways. So where I can say that we both had new career opportunities in 2021, what that looked like for both of us was just radically different.
That's so sweet though. Two Cancers.
Yeah. I know. That. Well, I mean, we were so happy in quarantine, like not fully, but with each other. And now we are, clingy little queer crabs living in a house. We now live in a house where we have 2 floors and we always say we're growing apart.
Oh,
I'm like, you're downstairs. We're growing apart.
I love that.
Yeah, but I'm in a 2-year. Sorry, I totally derailed us again.
No, it's okay. Cool. So good to know, I guess, background. And you are 29.
I'm 29. I'll be 30. Yeah, in July.
You'll be 30 in July. Okay. Cool. So interesting. Okay. So you're in the 6th house year, which is, I call the 6th house the grind. It's just like, just working. You're just working. And you have Mars here in the 6th house, in Taurus, but I would imagine that, I don't know, this fixed T-square you have going on, feels like it, I would almost imagine like you keep going. Cause if you don't, like, it'd be hard to get started again. Like, it's like, once you just like keep it going. Have you been sort of nonstop for a while in terms of work?
Yes and no. It's kind of funny. So I got laid off from my last corporate job right at the beginning of the pandemic. And so I was unemployed for a long time in the pandy. And then I started working with clients. But then last year was really my book and my podcast. So in terms of the workload, yes, I was constantly working on things, and I do like to have constant projects. But that being said, I will say that work does not correlate to money for me, or that hasn't been my experience. That like what I'm constantly working on is not always what is paying my bills. Yeah.
So, yeah. And how about right now, like in terms of your workload, I guess since you've been 29, like how has it been?
Well, so I wrote my book over the summer and into early fall. Like the last 6 months of 2021 were really about my book. So yes to doing a lot of work there, but like it looked different than any work I'd done before because I had to make my own schedule and kind of be in the grind with myself and get it out. And then I've been teaching a lot and still kind of working with clients, but I don't know, the work has really been changing for me, like what that means. And I actually think I have a lot of questions. That's probably the area of my life that I have the most questions around at the moment. Yeah.
There's so much coming, there's so much about to happen in your 6th house in the next, 6 months. So yeah, there's a lot of changes. Off the top of my head, I'm just thinking about, we have the node switching into Taurus and Scorpio. So that's happening like now basically. And and then eclipses are going to start there. So at the very end of April 30th, we have a solar eclipse in Taurus in your 6th house. And it's pretty close to your Mars too, but even without looking at it that way, it does also trine your Jupiter, which I love. But that to me signals there's the beginning of some major changes when it comes to just the work that you're doing on a day-to-day and how you're working on a day-to-day. And then, yeah, we get Scorpio eclipses too. Fun stuff. 12th house eclipses. But yeah, I think it's really is about like the work-life balance. And really, I think the next year and a half, there's going to be a lot of shifts and changes in regards to just like lifestyle, and how work fits in with lifestyle and vice versa. Later, I'm kind of like fast forwarding, but like later in the summer, and I think it's July or August. Yeah, late July, we get this intense Mars Uranus North Node conjunction. Or no, it's not on the North Node yet. No, it's very close actually. It's very close to the North Node. So Mars Uranus exact conjunction right on top of your Mars. It's literally at 16 degrees of Taurus. So that's something, just to kind of pay attention to in terms of, I just have a feeling that Mars rules your 5th house. So there's something there in regards to like a creative project. I feel like, are you guys like not thinking about kids at all?
We're not. We always kind of talk about it. We're like, oh gosh, going back and forth. But I think we're a no for now.
Okay. Just checking because there's a lot about to happen in your 5th house. That's what I had to ask.
Okay.
So in that case, yeah, like some sort of creative project, because there's just so much activity happening around your Mars, the ruler of your 5th house. Your IC is there in the 5th house. Jupiter will get there next year, but it does get pretty close. So kind of rewinding a little bit, just these first 4 months of 2022, we have your chart ruler Jupiter moving through your 4th house. It doesn't sound like you guys are planning on moving again anytime soon, right?
We don't have any plans on moving.
Cool.
We don't have any plans.
No, just checking. Because yeah, it feels like there's a grounding, or it always feels weird to say grounding when it comes to Jupiter and Pisces, but like a solidify or like a settling in, a comfort basically, for these first couple months of the year, where I think you might start to feel more like yourself, there's just like it's just nice when your chart ruler is in domicile, even if it's not in your 1st house, there's a confidence that comes. And then you get the Jupiter, we get our Jupiter opposition. I think that's in February. Like mid-February, basically around Valentine's Day. So you get your Jupiter opposition. Yeah. And then basically we get Jupiter kind of zooms through Pisces and enters Aries in early May. And I think this is really interesting because this is your chart ruler entering your 5th house. And yeah, I just can imagine that it feels like it's like seeding something for next year. So maybe it's a project you start to work on that, it's like a long-term thing, but it feels like some sort of getting pregnant with something, because it's something you're gonna eventually give birth to, probably sometime like a year or so from now. But it feels like the seeds kind of fall into place, or at least are getting planted in May or June of this year, because Mars will also be in Aries there, kind of lighting up your 5th house. I'm gonna look at your solar return real quick.
Yeah,
because then you're entering a Mercury year, and that's exciting. Okay, let's see. Let's look at 2022, because okay. Oh, interesting. So Mars return happening. You have a Moon Mars opposition in your solar return. I have that too, actually, from opposite signs. But yeah, it's an Aries rising chart, which brings your fifth house to the forefront. So again, I feel like there's just a lot of creative energy. Yeah, there's just like you're giving birth to something in 2023. So
okay. Well, I will say that 2021, absolutely. So I've always loved writing. I've always been a writer, but in my early 20s, when the business side of things got involved, I really lost all love for it. And last year, through both my book and then doing creative writing as well, like I really healed something with my creativity, and I'm loving it in a way that I haven't felt in years. So
that's awesome.
I'm here for this. I'm here for this creative project on the horizon.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something there. And your Saturn returns also like coming to an exact pass. You actually get kind of an extended Saturn return later in the year, but it's going to hit your natal Saturn for the first time in February, like the second half of February, basically. And then it's going to station retrograde in summer. It comes back to 18 degrees. Yours is at 17 degrees. So you just miss it, but I'm sure you're going to feel it. It's pretty close in October. So that's kind of like all of October is Saturn stationing. So yeah, again, the fact that you have Saturn in the third house, to me, the writing makes a lot of sense, and it makes sense that's kind of being revived again during your Saturn return. So maybe there's another book in there for you. Maybe there's something, there's definitely some sort of project, some sort of and then thinking about the fact that there's these eclipses in your 12th and your 6th, to me makes it seem like, you might be going through periods of isolation, especially because it's the ruler of your 12th and your 6th. So it'll be for like the isolation is for work type of thing.
More, I feel like that was last year.
But it's
my wife was like, are you lonely? And I was like, yes, all I do is spend time by myself.
No, it's interesting to think about how, next year Jupiter will again make a full transit through your fifth house. And you'll be in this 3-year, around creation too, so it's you're definitely, again, there's some fertile energy. And I'm not trying to make like baby jokes, or I'm not trying to say you'll have a baby, but I really do mean like some type of, creative thing. Yeah. And I think overall, just like there's definitely going to be opportunity for to be like seen. I think this fall, especially once you're in your Mercury year, you have this Mercury in the 9th. It's in Leo, like it's pretty visible. It has this nice sextile to the midheaven. So it's that piece, I think, what you do is so mercurial anyway, you're divining, which is mercurial in and of itself, but especially with numbers, with tarot, all of that. So it feels like that like you said, teaching, I was going to say that feels like that's becoming louder for sure. Maybe it's a course that sounds like something you'd be working on long term. But yeah, it feels the teaching piece becomes really loud once you turn 30. And then Mercury will go into Virgo, spend about a week and a half or so in Virgo in your 10th house, hit your chart ruler. That just feels like a nice opportunity type of, when is that?
Well, in the fall is when my book comes out too.
Oh, when's your book? When does it come out?
I don't have the exact date, but fall of 2022.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So that would make sense then. If that's what it is. Yeah. Cause Mercury will move through Virgo in August, and then it hits Libra. It's going to go retrograde in Libra, station direct again in Virgo, and then move forward. So you kind of get this extended stay of Mercury, which will then be your time lord in this part of your chart that has to do with visibility and, career and all of that. So fall makes a lot of sense for your book coming out. That's awesome. Okay, cool. Oh my gosh. I'm excited for you. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
And we'll have to trade Mercury year stories because I'm in a Mercury year right now. And I'm hoping to start writing a book soon.
Yes. Yes, you are.
Once I get like a moment of time to actually like rest and sleep a little bit, and then I can probably start writing.
Are you thinking this year, or are you thinking 2023 for the bulk of the writing?
The plan, the goal was to get it done by like July of this year, but
okay.
I don't see that happening. I think I'm going to spend most of the time. Oh, I didn't mention this. I think I'm going to spend most of Mars retrograde in Gemini writing it, to be honest, but worth it to know, Mars is going to station retrograde in your seventh house around Halloween.
Okay.
And it stations on your descendant actually, and it's going to be retrograde. It's going to be in Gemini for 6 months, so like August through like March of next year.
Okay.
So yeah, that's something to kind of think about too. It might be your partner. It might be something happening with your partner. It could also be like something having to do with this creative project, because again, it's the ruler of your fifth coming to your seventh. So it could be, that sounds like, I don't know, it could be some type of collaboration. But Mars retrogrades tend to be really good times for like re-strategizing things, or just kind of pulling back your efforts and like rethinking things in a way similar to Mercury retrograde, but it's longer term and it has more to do with like our energy expenditure and stuff like that. So that's also something just to keep an eye out for. But yeah, it's not really making any harsh aspects to anything in your chart except squaring Jupiter a couple times, but that's towards the end of it. Yeah. Oh, I hate that for us. It's like, come on, why does it have to be an angular Mars retrograde? But no, that's pretty much it. And again, that like long-term Mars square to your Jupiter is like the end of the year. It's like Jupiter, December into January and February. So yeah, that's a year from now. We're not going to worry about it.
Yeah, I can't plan that far ahead at this point. Like,
no,
my feet are in today.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, sorry, I kind of just blitzed through that, but
no, that's great. The beauty of this is I'll be able to listen to it back.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any questions about any of that, or yeah, anything else that's kind of on your mind?
Oh, yeah. Well, I just had one question. You said earlier that you said looking at the Saturn in the third, you weren't surprised that it was like a grueling experience. And so I'm curious about that. Is it just because Saturn as like more of the taskmaster, like structure kind of added a little bit of pressure to that process?
Pressure and also just slowness too. Like, and it's your Saturn's retrograde too. So it's like the aspect of delay and maybe things just moving not as quickly as you would want, or needing to kind of redo things or restructure things a few times. But also I was mainly saying that because not just Saturn, but Mercury, which would kind of speak to more of the actual like thinking, processing, writing, communicating type stuff.
Yeah.
Being in that T square with Saturn and Mars, and also Pluto being involved, like it's hard. Like Saturn is definitely holding it down because it is the only thing in domicile in your chart. And Mars being in detriment squaring is like annoying as fuck for Saturn. Saturn's like, I'm just trying to like, hold down the fort here. And Mars is like, being just a hot-headed and stubborn about it. Also, I think that, yeah, the Mars Saturn square can be difficult when it comes to like energy expenditure, I think too, and just figuring out like how and where to like, get started and where to put your energy, and kind of second guessing that a lot too.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that whole T square or Grand Cross situation you have just seems like it'd be difficult.
Yeah, yes. No, it felt like I had a really hard time turning the faucet on. And then once the faucet was on, now we're cooking with gas, baby. But it was a long process of turning the faucet on.
I hear that. And that's where I've been in, because I was supposed to finish this book June of 2021, and I still haven't started it. Because it's like, again, it's like, yeah, turning the faucet on. That's kind of how I've been thinking about it. For me, I think it's been, I've been dealing with Neptune square my Mercury, and just kind of making me feel like I'm like my brain is just constantly like on opiates or something when it comes to trying to write and like talk. It just doesn't work or hasn't worked. But that, and like, so yeah, there's a bunch of Mercury shit basically, but hoping to get things going this year.
Yeah.
Try to like get out of town and write.
Well, your 8-year does absolutely support doing.
Cool.
And the 9-year next year, obviously wrapping up, of projects and things, but also that element of sharing, of saying, this is, I've compiled this book for, I've written this book of all the things I know, and now I'm going to unleash it onto you and
I love
bless
that.
your life with it. Yeah.
I'm going to keep that in mind. I'm going to keep that in mind and try to motivate me to get it done by then. Awesome. This has been so great. Thank you so
lovely.
much for sharing so much of your knowledge, re-enlivening my love for numbers. I mean, I never stopped loving numbers, but this has given me a lot more to think about and start using them more. So
yeah, cool. No, thank you for giving me the space to say all of the words that float around in my head all day.
Yes, 100%. Where can people find you?
Yes. So I am on the gram for now. Who knows? Who knows? But I'm on Instagram at @Scolnick. And Scolnick is SCOLNICK. I'm sure it'll be written for you somewhere. And then my website is www.RebeccaScolnick. So my full name.com. And there you can find, I have some free offerings, and you can also book readings with me, listen to my pod, and then at some point we'll have book information there. So yeah, I've handed it to a trusty copy editor, and I will see it on the other side.
Awesome.
Yeah, but I'm excited about that. So on the gram and on my site, and then I send out a weekly newsletter that you can sign up for either place too.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.